Good morning, everyone. My name is Yazil Sean Ligot, and today I'll be talking about APA documentation. So, for today, we have questions for reflection, which are what are the major changes in APA documentation from the 6th edition to the 7th edition? Cite at least five. Number two, which sources do you use most in your previous writing assignments or in your future writing assignments? How do you cite them? Give at least two examples. And number three, which formatting rules did you learn after watching the videos and reading the APA documentation 7th edition? So, to address question number one, these are the five major changes in the APA documentation that I have noticed. So for the first three, they are about citing sources. Number one is don't include publisher location. Number two is shorten in-text citation for at least three or more authors. And number three is DOIs are now real URL addresses. So for the first one, don't include publisher location. In citing, one may omit the publisher location of journals and books. Here's an example. So here we have the San Francisco as publisher location. For the 6th edition, this is fine, but for the 7th edition, we must omit this and put Simon and Scottster, which is the um, publication house of this book, to the end of the article title. Number two, shorten in-text citation for three or more authors. The inline text citing works with three or more authors. Uh, for these, the first citation should include et al. Before, we used to include everyone's last name for the first citation and change it to et al. The second time or the third. But now, in the 7th edition, uh, every citation must include et al. If there are three or more authors. Number three, DOIs are now real URL addresses. The label DOI is no longer necessary. DOIs are now formatted as URLs. So example is DOI here, 1090, which becomes https:/doi.org/1090, which is URL because DOIs are now considered as real URLs. So number three, uh, that's for 1, 2, and 3. And for number 4, I took this from the bias-free language part of the APA documentation, which says use exact age ranges. So what this means is that instead of using broad categories, we must use exact age ranges that are more specific and relevant. An example of this is over 45, under 30, under 18, something like this. They are too broad. And what it means to be more specific is that it needs to be something like this: 45 to 55 years old. It's more specific and it's more relevant. So for the final on the fifth major changes in the APA documentation is part of the APA paper format, which includes increased flexibility in font choices. So the font choices now for the 7th edition include Calibri 11, Arial 11, Lucidius Sans Unicode 10, Times New Roman 12, and Georgia 11. Notice that the text here are enlarged for better viewing. So that is it for the five major changes in the APA documentation from 6th to 7th edition. For number two, question number two, my answer is my most important or my most common research sources and two ways to cite them. So here are the common sources: ProQuest for sciences and literature, EBSCOhost, which is also like ProQuest a database, a directory of open access journals or DOAJ, which is as its name says, an open access for journals, which means that it's free and it's easier this way to find journals that can be cited in APA formats. Um, so the two ways that I cite them are in text citations and in reference style. And in text citations, there are two ways of doing this. One is to put both the last name and the date inside a parenthesis and separated by a comma, or we could use the latter, which is the last name and the date enclosed by a parenthesis. For the reference style, this is for the reference part of your paper, which is at the end of the paper. And this is an example of that kind of reference style. For number three, the formatting rules I have learned from watching the videos shown in Animo Space. So the videos are about APA documentation, and I've learned about the reference lists, the format of this, which includes authors or organization, publication date, title, and sources. All of these are being separated by a period. So for the reference list, we must use hanging indents, which means that the second to the last second from the second line to the last line of the reference must be indented. The second is must be alphabetically categorized by the author's last name. This is for convenience of the readers and so that they can skim through the references with ease. So this is a sample of a reference with highlighted parts. So the yellow part is the last name and initials of the authors with ampersand at the end, separating the last author. And for the green part, which is the year of publication, and the blue, which is the title of the article. Now, for the sources, there are a lot of parts, which includes academic journal, volume number, issue number, page range, and DOI. In our example, Music 1 is the academic journal, the volume number is 7, the issue number is 4, the page range is 1 to 13, and the DOI is the link below. And that is it for APA documentation. Once again, I am Yazel Sean S. Ligot, and thank you for listening and watching my presentation. Goodbye.